It takes time to go from this stage to this. That probably some of the lag we've seen in the onset of the program when we started. The project cost, the total project value, as I said, in terms of what here I've just given you aggregated values, but we've had some projects that cost, total project value was $300,000 to $14 million in terms of some of the projects we are involved in. These are the companies that have been funded. I didn't put the approved one. There's 3 of them that have been approved. We're still in the process of finalizing the agreements. Collaboration with the National Institute of Nanotechnology. You have Kenwood, Hitachi, DataCan, and Xerox. With the University of Alberta, you have Scanimetrics, SciMed, Nokata, Borio as a joint, and DTEX. University of Calgary, HydroCore. If you want to get a flavor of what kind of funding distribution has been with the nanoWorks, you can see the line show the funding clumps or below $1 million. In some instances, we have had 1.5 to 1.75 million dollars, kind of a funding commitment to one, and that could range for 1 to 3 year projects. And we've had one case of funding about $3 million projects. I said something about program evolution. Again, I was talking to Tricia at break, and one of the things that I mentioned was it's often when you're running this type of program to become also to also play a role of an advocacy in the environment. The fact that we've had a program, an official program in the province that is involved in industrial partnership between a company and institutions, that may be university or NINT and so on, is a number of issues now that surface and become really, you provide a platform for that to be addressed. Now, some of the things we've dealt with, and going back to where when I joined Ingenuity to run the industry programs, the many programs we had with Ingenuity were primarily focusing on the capacity building at the institution, researchers, students, and so on. And the issue about confidentiality often never comes up. But yet, when you have a program like the nanoWorks program that's tailored towards late stage of commercialization, you have to have these issues addressed in a way that there's confidence from the applicants, and also there's confidence through our review process to ensure that we are not simply because a company has to make an application to us for funding or request funding, thereby we compromise its ability to do business. And again, that doesn't advance the mandate we have. So we've worked some of these issues around confidentiality to ensure that the processes provide that confidence to the applicants. Some of the things that the company have raised was if the program is essentially about seeking solution from institution, but at the end it's about developing products and application for industry, and the funding really is for the company but being used by the institution, which was a little bit difficult to explain to the institution by the mechanism that the money was going to the institution on behalf of the company. So, but what you have is the question that, is this simply to support research rather than product development? And with that, and some of the constraints we had with the government of flowing some of the money directly to companies, we found some mechanism by which we can do this, of which some of the nanoWorks funding can cover some of the activities within the industry partner. The steering committee composition, again, to stress the statement that this is about industry, it's not about academia. We purposely try to design the committee to lead a program that's primarily of the business people, venture capital, rather than having a lot of academic and turning this into academic review of projects. Well, we caved in one of that. Now we've invited one one business academic individual into the committee, simply because of some of the challenges we're having with universities in the area of intellectual property and processes, and to have some of that being dealt internally. Recently, as I think about maybe this year, I guess, 6 to 8 months, we defined what we call institutional partner, and that goes into this next slide. The program started with institutional partner being the National Institute for Nanotechnology, and post-secondary institutions, the University of Alberta, University of Calgary, and University of Lethbridge. We've now expanded that to include colleges and technical institutes, and also to include the ACAMP as an institutional partner. So which again, as I said, many of the client base that ACAMP they engage with can very well look at this program for help in terms of product development and in the nano and micro technology area. Okay. So I briefly talked about some of the issues. Some of the things we find, and I think Lou brought some, kind of highlighted some of them in his talk, was the fact that if you see you want to help companies, you want to remove as many barriers as possible, so that when they are successful, they have flexibility to talk to venture cap or to seek a private investment without having too many things tied up along the way in a collaboration. So one of the things we've been working with, and again goes back to my point that it's playing a role of the advocacy in working with Tech Edmonton and at the institution, for instance, try to simplify the process of coming to agreement on intellectual property, because this has been a feedback we received with early companies that participate in the program, finding that process very complicated and frustrating. So with Chris Lam moving to Tech Edmonton, we had some discussions, and we've delivered on some of this, and I just have to see how that works on a go-forward basis. The issues about universities, and it takes sometimes quite a long time to establish funding agreements and so on. And again, in the program, we set a time frame of about 4 months to get those things done. Often you get some discussion that you can't even have an IP agreement dealt with up front. But again, we've insisted that that needs to be done so that everybody has clarity on how things would unfold, so the companies are not tied up. And as from Lou's presentation, you need to have a clean IP, you need to have clarity in a number of things, so you can have the flexibility to move for your exit, whether it's for your exit strategy or simply trying to seek investments. You don't need to go back to university and start to renegotiate IP agreements, which would add the delays to an advancement of the company's interest. And again, we're focusing on regional value chains. That again, this is more of an internal discussions we're having right now. Is we're defining what's part of the innovation as the industry participants and the institutions and the government, all part of one system. And when do you want to extract value from that chain? Is that once the company is successful, or kind of early in the stage of development when the company is still struggling to establish its footing and having restriction that would not make it successful. This is a cost share. We have a formula for the nanoWorks program, and again, it's tailored to company size. You can see from large to startup. And these are based on cash contribution. As I said, it's a matching fund of which we put money and industry put money. For a large corporation, it's about 1-to-1. For $1 of our dollar, they have to contribute $1. For the small company, the difference is made up through in-kind contributions.